Hello, everyone, and welcome to our event today. My name is Sheena Smith, and I'm the VP of Client Services here at Spend Matters. If you haven't joined us for a webinar yet this year, you may have noticed that we've recently switched webinar platforms. So you'll see our 3 various LinkedIn communities there, and you can peruse our websites by clicking the URL buttons down in the bottom. And if you have any technical questions, sound questions, please send them my way through the Q&A panel. I'll just do a very brief introduction to Spend Matters if you haven't been to one of our events before. The Spend Matters network of sites is the leading online B2B source for procurement and supply chain news. We publish 6 new articles every single day, and we keep everyone from Fortune 50 companies to students in the supply chain program at Michigan State, from chief procurement officers to category managers, in the know on procurement, supply chain, and beyond. That being said, our very special focus and where we really like to geek out is on technology in this space. So much so that we decided to partner with the Institute for Supply Management to throw our own conference, the Global Procurement Technology Summit, on March 14th through 16th in Baltimore. So if you'd like more information on that, you can visit the site you see below. And yes, we will send you a copy of the slides so you can actually click that link, or shoot me an email to smith@spendmatters.com. Now, I think one of our favorite things at Spend Matters is to help spread the word about successful procurement changes and implementations that go beyond cost savings into true value creation. So on today's session, we'll set the event management category stage with our Chief Research Officer, Pierre Mitchell, before diving into Eli Lilly and Company's story around their EVED experience, featuring Roberto Ramirez and Talia Mashiach. Good morning, everyone. Pierre, want to say a few words about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I won't spend really much time here at all, given we don't have a lot of time, but I run research here at Spend Matters, and background 25 years supply chain procurement and in this whole research gig as well. So happy to really have Lily here, and thanks for EVED for sponsoring it. I think hopefully you get some good insights out of it.
Good morning, Roberto. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. This is Roberto Ramirez. I'm with Eli Lilly and Company. I'm in G&A procurement, supporting our global travel and meeting services group, and have been supporting the travel and events categories for a little over 4 years now.
Wonderful. And Talia, tell us about yourself and EVED.
Hi, everybody. This is Talia, and I am the CEO, founder, and product architect of EVED. Really excited to have everybody here. EVED was built to solve the problem of bringing strategic spend management for meetings and events and capturing that data through automating the procure-to-pay process. Really excited to share with you today.
Wonderful. And did you want to tell us a bit more about EVED specifically?
Yes, so thank you to everyone for joining us today. I'm often asked why I chose to bet my entrepreneurial career on meetings and events, like why not healthcare or another hot tech sector. And I joke that I love a challenge of transforming the meeting and events category, because it's certainly a huge challenge. But really, the truth is that I'm passionate about live events because I'm so passionate about human connections and the power human connections have on obtaining business objectives. There's nothing that can compare to talking and seeing people live, which means there's no channel more powerful in driving the top line than live meetings and events. So when I talk to procurement professionals, the conversation usually starts with, well, if there's not already an initiative in your company to start strategically managing the spend category, it's coming and you need to be ready for it. You need to get ahead of it. You know, it's my hypothesis that the event channel will be the #1 marketing channel by 2020, and companies starting to tackle the category today are going to have huge competitive advantages because of the data. The day you start collecting your data properly is the day you could truly start to tackle the category. So why will live meetings and events keep growing and take that lead in 2020 as the leading channel? So like I mentioned, human connections are the most powerful way to connect with your audience, and events foster this connection better than any other channel. The trend now is people want experiences over things. You look at millennials. Companies are making so many changes to adapt to this new generation. There was actually an article a few weeks ago in the Wall Street Journal about the fact that millennials would prefer to travel or an experience over buying the latest new handbag or car. Well, millennials are going to be your corporate buyer before you know it, and their buying decisions will be driven from the experiences that you create around your company and your product, not from the ad they're going to read or from the email campaign they're going to receive. And finally, in this ever-increasing digital world with so much information at one's fingertips, experiences are what stands out. Look at what Restoration Hardware has done with their retail stores. They put a restaurant in the middle. They've created room settings like an art gallery, so you experience their furniture like your own home. It's an experience while you shop. There's sometimes an hour wait to get in the door to get into these stores. It's the way that the world is going. So live events will foster your customers' experience and engagement with your company and your product. I believe that companies understand this conceptually, but many are not connecting that live events and meetings are critical to their business strategy, and I think that's because they're missing the data. When a company finds out that they spend $100 million plus on live events, the heads start to turn. There are pharma companies that spend as much as $1 billion on meetings and events, and the average large tech company is spending around $250 million annually. These are not small numbers. I talk to salespeople and I ask them, like, what's your biggest driver on your close rates? And they say, my close rates come from our live events when I can connect with my clients. Some sectors are better than others at leveraging events. Tech and pharma are perhaps the most advanced and use live events as a critical channel in both their internal and client-facing marketing and sales strategies. But others are way behind. There are so many companies that don't even know what their meeting and event spend is. Some may know what their spend is, but they don't know what they spend it on or by who or how this investment is returning any revenue for them. I believe the largest challenge has been the difficulty in capturing the spend data in a meaningful way. Some tools on the market could capture the data, but only via a person sitting and manually entering this invoice data. Some companies are paying third parties to actually sit and manage that for them and enter that data. Standard ERP systems just don't work well for the meeting and event category. The use of credit cards have further challenged procurement and finance because the visibility and controls actually further eroded with their use. So Evid was built to solve this problem and bring strategic spend management for meetings and events. Evid captures the data through automating the procure-to-pay process and provides the visibility needed to strategically manage the category. Some of our clients had no visibility into meetings events before Evid, and now they're running ROI analyses with their data. And some clients like Lilly, who we'll hear from today, have had best-in-class programs for years now. They've had tools in place to capture data, but not at the granular level they wanted to continue to raise the bar to drive efficiencies and cost savings year over year. It's really been a pleasure to be a part of transforming an industry and a valuable partner to our clients. Lilly is truly an innovator and a leader on strategic spend management for events, and we are excited to hear their story. So thank you for joining us.
Excellent. Thanks, Talia. And Pierre, let's lay out the big picture. What does this category really look like out there from an analyst point of view?
Well, I guess I'm going to pick up on Talia's point around the value of the category, and we'll kind of go big picture in. But I think this issue, not just around engagement, and this just comes from personal experience too. When I worked at a big professional services firm, you know, the annual conferences that we had with our clients were one of the absolute major sources of new revenue. Once we kind of brought them into our community and our way of thinking, it was a huge revenue source. And so certainly, you know, that was great for the CEO, and but for the CFO, and not just for, you know, companies that I worked for, but clients that I've talked to, this area is also a very big, you know, it can be a very big spend category, and particularly for, you know, growing organizations or just anyone that has a lot of large events. And the CFO wants to really be able to get some discipline around it and actually be able to do some cost modeling and spend planning around, you know, these types of events. So a lot of key stakeholders here, but, you know, the bottom line is that in this trend towards services and in this trend towards deeper engagement with customers, there is a really exciting time to use digital and mobile, social, and a lot of these kind of B2C like technologies and platforms, and bring those into B2B. And we're seeing it in logistics, and actually here, in this category, look at Uber, what they're doing for ground transportation, right? That's a classic example of a platform. I mean, that company's worth like $60 billion now, right? So it's, that's a clear idea around focusing on a key, business problem. And, and events is certainly a very complex and area that we'll talk about in just a sec. In terms of the continuous improvement, I mean, there is a relentless focus on continuing to drive cost and spend out, especially as the market slows down a little bit, and how do we drive incremental revenues in new ways through new sets of offers and new ways to engage customers. And doing that, really then kind of comes back to procurement and supply chain to say, how do we deliver that value beyond just cost reduction and just some of the old ways in which we've done things. So, this isn't just about just good old-fashioned strategic sourcing and supply-based rationalization and pick some low-level commodities and go have at it. The world has gotten much more complex, and as things fragment and get digitized and get outsourced, you have to be able to really orchestrate these increasingly complex supply chains. And you got to be able to do that internally as well as orchestrate that stuff internally as well as externally. So that means really breaking down silos and really engaging your functional partners, including finance, including IT, including marketing, and working together to create joint solutions for internal stakeholders, the business units and such, as well as for external customers. So the more in which we can, we're seeing more collaboration cross-functionally, as well as then extending that out into these B2B and multi-tier kind of value chains here. And, events is certainly a very complex supply chain. We have to be able to manage that. And that means, managing across all these silos. And on the next slide, I'm going to give you a bit of a scary chart here, but I mean, this is the nature of the category. If you look at these events, and we're talking about a whole spectrum of events from internal meetings all the way through to large external trade shows that you're either putting on or running a conference within a conference or just attending, these methods of engagement really have lots of different stakeholders involved who all have different outcomes, right? So we want to have revenue uplift, have attendees be satisfied and delighted. We want to be able to, do all the things that we're trying to do as a company through these events. And as we do that, procurement organizations are starting to move from this kind of supply and spend category focus that you might, let's say starting in travel, has setting up preferred agreements with air and ground and hotel and travel planning. But how do we now drive much deeper in a more integrated fashion into these sets of meeting and events that not only bring in event-specific spend, whether it's in destination management or equipment and things like this, but also starting to get into these areas that include other spend areas around, digital and the technology that you use in the conferences and logistics and all the Marcom and event marketing services. Your strategy that you choose to take will vary, but regardless of how you choose to engage that, you're really going to have to do some serious orchestration. And just like in any kind of category, this kind of super category really requires you to have some of the basics. And that means, just being able to see where the heck you're spending your money on. And this is a challenge in this fragmentation. It's not just ERP, but it's spreadsheets, project management systems, and budgets. Suppliers have their own systems. There are niche kind of industry systems, contract management, all the P-card data and travel card data, expense systems. It's just there are a lot of data sources if you're really trying to get an accurate picture of that simple question of what is your event spend. And actually, we have a polling question here because we want to get your guys' input on this. So Sheena's going to put this up here. So the polling question, the first one that we have is, really there's two questions we're going to do back to back. So the first one is just, how long does it take you to get the information that you need to just get information on how much does your organization spend on meetings? And with that backdrop of all these systems that are in play, how long would it take you to actually put all of that data together? And and including, getting visibility into that bucket of spend called other, right? So let's kind of see where you guys are at on that.
All right. So do you know how much your organization spends on meeting and events? And if so, how quickly can you report on it? So let's get some audience answers here. Can you do it in real time? If you can, you're probably in pretty good shape. Can you do it within a day? How about a week? How about a month? And how about 2 months? Or are you having trouble getting visibility into this area? We'll give about 10 more seconds here.
So as everybody does that, what we're going to do on the next slide is after we get this, we're actually going to look at what level of detail can you provide it at, because that is the two pieces of spend visibility. So, okay, let's.
All right, so brief look at the results there.
Yep, and you can see it's, there's a lot of folks in that 30-day bucket and even in the 60-day bucket, so definitely all over the board here. Okay, so let's go to the next.
All right, moving on to our next polling question. How detailed is that data? And just to let you know, this is a multiple choice, multiple answers. So if you have more than one here, go ahead and let us know. So can you look at your total event spend? Can you look at your spend by a detailed category? Maybe by a high-level category, like your hotel spend, transportation, or that bucket we love to call other? What about your business unit spend, or by vendor? Pierre, what do you think here? What do you think we'll get?
Well, I know a lot of folks are really at kind of that vendor and high-level category bucket and business unit. That's kind of the basic spend queue. But I'll be curious in terms of who can say they can really get it at that detailed category level of insights as well. Sometimes. All right, let's see the results here. Right. Okay.
All right, got those results up?
Yeah, you definitely. So you can see here, folks can definitely see it by vendor, right? Just go pull your AP data and your PO history and by vendor, so you get some of that, and by business unit, great, and even by high-level category. But then when you get into that detailed category analysis, that's where it gets a little trickier if you really want to be able to shape some of these areas. So this makes a lot of sense to me. So well, with that, I want to bring in Roberto to this. So Roberto, you've seen kind of what the crowd has to say here around where they are. Can you just maybe reflect back on when you first kind of got into this and where you are now in terms of just the effort involved and the visibility into the spend?
Yeah, so I think those are both great points as far as a change in where we were several years ago. Coming in, we've always had the spend by vendor and a lot of those basic category details. So we could get at some high level data, but it was always a challenge to tie that at a more granular level. Especially when you're thinking about meeting specific. So if we looked at how a meeting was coming through, we would start with our budget information, and we knew what our stakeholders had budgeted for a particular meeting and what was kind of set aside for that. And as the data came in, as the amount we paid the various vendors, the meeting planning companies, and they were passing through to the audiovisual folks and all the others, ultimately, we had numerous data sources that would come back, and it would take us a while because there were a lot of manual steps there of data coming from different sources, data being input by different people, and just before everything got reconciled and fleshed out, there was a lag of a couple months before we could really provide more meeting-specific data. And another challenge of where we were is that even with that, because of the way it was collected and from numerous sources, we ended up with that big other bucket, which, from the procurement professional's perspective, we never like to see, a significant other bucket, especially when, you're talking 25-30% of your spend is sitting in another bucket. It posed some challenges. So, as we've moved towards the Evid platform, there's been some significant strides there in one, just automating how we collect that data, having it visible much more quickly, and giving us, a better sense of what's happening, in real time. So I think that was something that as we're working through implementation, we're getting better grips around what is our meeting specific spend, and being able to see more of those details, which is always a benefit, because then we can take that back to our business units and show them really where they're spending their money, with enough precision that they can make better decisions. And it just helps us, helps them from the budgeting perspective, and it also helps us, being able to benchmark that, because, data is a very important tool, as part of our day-to-day operations, and that really helps us make better business decisions as we go through that. So that's been a big improvement from where we were just a couple of years ago, where we're getting that high-level data, but not with enough detail to really make fully informed decisions in every case.
That's a great point that you made there. I mean, because you're not talking just about the process efficiency and just those real pain points of people just spending too much time just dealing with the day-to-day of this, but really elevating procurement's role as an enabling function and as a kind of a money manager, almost to kind of really help the business units that it's their money, right? How do they manage their spend better and give them this visibility? Because quite often finance may not be able to provide all the visibility that they need through the lens of just the GL or whatever. You're really giving them a view into their own money that they're spending, so that they can get more value out of it and shape it better, right, as they're doing these events, and help their stakeholders and your customers get more out of these events and accomplish what they're trying to accomplish, right? Revenue uplift or training or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, no, exactly, because I think there's the key whenever you're talking to your internal stakeholders and coming from the procurement side, there's some skepticism. So, if you go to say, well, I think we're spending too much here, or we have some concerns, if you don't have the data to support that, your business owners, can easily dismiss that. So, that data is very powerful to really just paint a quick picture to say, here's where you're spending your money. And a lot of times, they until they see it in front of them, they just don't realize it, because I think the initial reaction is, well, things must be going well, or it seems like a lot, but it seems it sounds right, or you get these very vague conversations, but when you have specific data you can point to, it really helps enable those decisions and really add value from the procurement side, but also to the stakeholders to make sure that they're understanding that. So, I think that spend visibility is one of the key, kind of key pieces of the tool, and then just the process efficiencies is kind of the other side of that. When you think of those various data sources coming in and a lot of the manual reconciliation, all of that, is stuff that's now contained within the tool. So that automation really saves a lot of internal resource time, and just, so in addition to just giving you better data, you get, kind of better processes as well. So I think that was something that's been, a big advance in the way we were previously doing meetings, to where we are today.
I like that how you bring it together, the spend management, spend visibility with the process management, and managing that well. I mean, and those two are linked. For example, like if the data is not really good, and if you're generating kind of bad data in the in POs and in the invoicing and payments process, it's not going to flow through, and you're not going to see it. And similarly, if you have P cards and travel cards going wild, it might be hard to kind of see the level 3 detail and things you're trying to get at. But so, I mean, tell me a little bit on the payment side and on the invoicing side. It sounded like there was a lot of reconciliation and a lot of using different kind of niche systems. I mean, did you find that having a more kind of a choke point and a way in which you can kind of manage the payments better was not just a process efficiency, but it also kind of created a closed loop, and it fed back into the tool with data that was a little cleaner and validated kind of up front?
Yeah, I mean, I think just being able to have it quicker, so I mean, the timing of it, because you were having some payments going out as the meeting was getting set up, but then a lot of the things weren't paid till after the meeting closed, and you were getting data from P cards, and so the multiple sources meant that various pieces of the data lived in different systems, and to really have visibility to it, you had to pull all that together, and the manual steps involved in doing that just always, one, it just was very resource intensive. So you had a team of people reconciling, okay, was what was budgeted, what we actually spent, and do those match up, and just the back and forth in actually processing the payment, was pretty time consuming, and just with that much manual entry, there's room for human error. So, I think, no matter how diligent you're being, there's always some potential there. So I think the automation that comes from the system was something that really helps in that, having one payment process that goes from beginning to the end of the process, where here's what your expenses are set to be from the outset, where they land, and what's ultimately being paid. It's just sped up the entire process and made it, I think, a lot less work for our P2P folks as they process that. So, I mean, I think even the other side of it that is a little bit away from the sourcing side, but that part of our procurement department, they've been really impressed with seeing, just the time savings and some of the better efficiencies that they get from the system.
And all those deals you negotiate, right, in sourcing, all those deals are nothing if you can't actually use them and get better compliance in the execution system. So there's probably, it probably helps you there, as well as probably keeps you out of maybe less firefighting and spending your time chasing the transactional side, so you can really, what's the opportunity of your cost and your team's cost? It's probably pretty high, because you could be working more spend and engaging suppliers more deeply, rather than reconciling and chasing invoice details and approvals and all that stuff, right? So a big opportunity cost value there. So, all right, well, guys, let's get to Q&A, see if there's anything there, and then Talia, if you have any comments, you'd like to chime in as well, that'd be great too.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of questions that we've seen coming through asking about the payment mechanism, and is it really card? And I think Roberto can share. I know that it's very common to use a meeting card, but there's a lot of challenges with that, including the reconciliation time, as Roberto mentioned, and just in terms of the three-way match and the risk of spending over budget and then coming back and auditing on the back end. And Evid, we use our own payment network called Evid Pay, of which we really leverage the existing AP system that a company has. So it really puts back all the controls and processes, and that's, I think, part of why finance really likes it. And it's all with e-payments. It's a completely digital experience, so it completely removes all of that extra effort, and it works really well. So I think that was some of the questions that were coming in on how it works, and it's really geared for the meeting and event spend, really budgeted spend that could really tie into cost centers that are supporting that spend, versus the question was this also for the travel, for individual travel, and really it is really geared towards the meeting and event spend.
Tina, anything else?
Great, and we had a question come in from the audience real quick. So they want to know, why can't their ERP system provide the data a company needs for this category? Maybe we can have Talia hop in, and then Pierre.
I can take that. I know that ERP systems are great and they work really well for a lot of different categories, but indirect services for sure are difficult regardless, but especially for our meetings and events. There are so many moving parts. It starts with the budget, but then things change. Attendees change. You need extra buses. You need extra rooms, and that really doesn't work so well for a system that's really built and there's a box kind of around it. And so that's why the industry has really pushed towards outsourcing to third parties or for the card product. And really what we've done with Evit is we actually go back and do integrate into that ERP system. We do allow you to now tie back in if that's a way that a company wants to get back to and have those controls in place, but by specifically really addressing how it needs to work within the meeting and event industry. So really kind of taking all of the trade-offs that have been in the past and really bringing that back to really allow a company to put the compliance and the controls and in place that they need, but still creating the flexibility that is really, and the efficiencies that are really needed to get the job done for the event team.
Yeah, the ERP system is a great system of record. It's good for the GL. It's good for housing, a lot of the master data, to employees and roles and, things like that. But for the system of engagement in an area where you have complex services, where ERPs are really based historically, their data models, it's fundamentally architected around products and SKUs. They don't do services well, and they don't do multi-tier very well. And this is a multi-tier, value chain, and also the ability to do kind of dynamic, manage these complex projects and these dynamic set of actors and coordinating that. They're just too slow and not really modeled for this type of spend very well. I mean, you can do a lot of creative stuff to get some of it, but as that slide that I had up there, there's just a lot of source systems that are there that you have to, orchestrate the activity across.
Wonderful, thank you. And with that, I think we're going to be respectful of everyone's time and keep it to our allotted half hour. And we'd like to thank everyone so much for joining us today. And I'd like to personally thank Pierre, Talia, and Roberto. It's been a pleasure to work with you to plan this event. If you do have any follow-up questions, our panelists' email addresses are up there on the screen. Please use them. We love hearing from our readers and audience members and clients and everybody. And if we didn't get to your question today, check back on Spend Matters in the next week or so, and we'll see if we can answer any remaining questions in a follow-up blog post. So with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of the week, and thanks again for joining us.